Cool. Brilliant. Right. Without further ado, we will start because I know you guys have been waiting. So thank you for coming today to the Head Start session, the first of many on how to smash your summer exams. My name is Savannah and I work at the Future Students Office at University of Leicester. And it's really nice to see you all today. And hopefully you'll find this useful. I've done exams myself, so I know how daunting they might be, especially for you guys at the moment, because it's the first time in quite a while you'll be doing exams. But that's why we're here today to help you. I am joined by my wonderful colleague Alex as well, who unfortunately can't get on the live stream, but she is in the chat. So if you have any questions about your exams or about University of Leicester and what it's like to study, she is also a student who's on placement here. So she's more than happy to help as well. No question is a silly question, and just write them as soon as they pop into your head, and we'll either answer those at the end or during the presentation. But let's start. Okay, so what we're going to cover today is we're going to cover when it's best for you to get things done. Because for a lot of you, I know that procrastination and motivation might be really, really difficult at the moment. So we'll look at when's best to get things done and also how you can manage your time as well. So we'll look at time management, both while you're revising, but also in those exams as well. We'll look at analysing those assignments too. So for some exams, in fact, most exams, you'll have a essay question that you have to do. Even at the end of science questions, you usually have one that's worth more marks, where you do need to write a couple of paragraphs. And things like psychology and your Englishes, you'll have essays where you need to write as well in your exam sometimes. So we'll look at how you can analyse those to make sure that you are hitting the nail on the head with those as well. We'll also look at creating a plan with these. I think this is something where a lot of people panic. I know I definitely did when I was a student, and I would not be sure how to make a plan, or if I should make a plan, or just go straight into the assignment. Then we'll finish with some top tips and that Q&A as well. So first things first, time management. So the best thing to start with is thinking about yourself and thinking about when is the best time for you to study, because everyone is different. Some people are night owls, so they work best at night. That's when their brain is really switched on and they're the most productive. With other morning people, and you're most productive in the morning, you might be able to kind of figure this out a little bit with yourself. At school at the moment, do you find the lessons in the morning a lot easier than the ones that you have in the afternoon, for example? So think about when you work best. And if there is anyone in the chat right now, feel free to kind of share whether you think you're a night owl or you're a more up with the dawn chorus as well. You're an early morning riser. I think for me, I definitely used to be a night owl, but as I've got older, I think I'm more of a morning person. So think about you, and feel free to write that in the chat. Someone might be similar to you. So the first thing is find the best time for you. So once you've done that, one thing to think about is thinking time as well. So everybody has different attention spans, and today you might think at the end of this talk, right, that was really, really great, but you might have started flagging towards the end of my talk, which is normal. That's absolutely fine. You might be someone who can concentrate for an hour, or you might be someone who needs a break after 30 minutes. Start thinking about when your mind does start to wander, because that means that it's probably not effective and you do need a break, or you need to change things up. So do a different task, so you can really get the most out of your study time. So really start to think what's best for you. When does your attention span start to wander a little bit? And like I said, it's normal for everyone to need a break. So you can see there on the screen, when there was an experiment that was done, you can see how concentration and student performance are linked. So you can see there, if you were just to study for 60 minutes at the start, you might have really great concentration, but towards the end of that 60 minutes, it's just completely wavered. But if you were to put a break in that, so even if it's just, a 5-minute break to get a cup of tea or whatever snack you like to eat, you can see that break really improves concentration. But you do need to be careful because you don't want too many breaks so you don't actually get into anything. But even if you have, 2 breaks in 60 minutes, so you do 20-minute chunks, for some people that really works, and it does improve their concentration. So think about how that might affect you. And that's why we say make sure you're working in bite-sized study techniques, because that will really help you with your concentration and really absorb that energy. So work smarter, not harder. Help yourself out by bite-sizing it. Don't just think, right, I'm just going to plug at this for 60 minutes and I'll manage it. I'll be fine. You really do need to bite-size it down because it will help your concentration. There's 2 techniques that you can use for this. So this is one of them. So what you could do is you could choose your task or the subject that you want to focus on, set a timer for 25 minutes, then work on that task, really knuckle down, have a 5-minute break, and then repeat the process again. Repeat it as many times as you have time available. So, if you have 2 hours, brilliant. And then you can have a longer break at that. If you've got, the full morning, then keep on doing it. And then at lunchtime, you can have a nice long break. Or perhaps you could do it before you start doing an after school, a hobby on a weekend or something. So that's one of the techniques you can use to really break up your study time. But with managing those tasks as well, one thing that you can do as well is really think about those bite-sized tasks as well. So it's really great, having this technique and using those bite-sized chunks, giving yourself 20 minutes. But you do need to make sure that you're making them bite-sized tasks. If you've got a past paper to do, you do need the amount of time it takes to do that past paper to do it. So make sure you set realistic goals that manage your expectations and your mental health as well. You would be making sure that you're giving yourself enough time to revise, but your mental health is so important. So make sure you do give yourself a break just so you don't have to think about it for a little bit and you have that enjoyment still, so it doesn't feel like a massive chore. It means that you can manage your breaks as well, and you can make those large tasks more manageable as well. So if you really bite-size the chunks, so even if you were doing something that needed a lot of time, for example, a past paper, you could split it into chunks. So you could give yourself, 20 minutes to do the big question at the end, and then you could give yourself 30 minutes to do part of it, and so on and so forth. So really break things down for yourself to make it more manageable, to make sure your concentration is at an all-time high as well. So I want to know as well how you guys work in deadlines. So if you have any specific feelings about deadlines, then do put that in the chat, because again, this is something where people differ as well. Some people are really good at getting a strict deadline, and they need that really strict deadline to get them to work really far in advance. Other people are a little bit more last minute, and that's all down to how people work. Make deadlines for you. So if you're someone who leaves it to the last minute, make sure you make things bite-sized, so then you can set yourself deadlines in advance and you can hit those. Even if you do leave it last minute, it means that you have that time still and you can go back over things as well. So really think about how you work and what works best for you in regards to deadlines too. But with time management, some general tips for you. Think about making the most of your time. It is your time. It's not just about work. It's also about having those breaks so you can revitalize your concentration and also look after your mental health as well. So one way that you can do this is create an action plan that's realistic. So make a timetable that includes your hobbies that you have at the moment and gives yourself, an hour each day to do that hobby. And then give yourself the rest of the time to do the revision. And if you're someone who knows that you maybe want Sunday off, but you're going to really make sure you work on Saturday, that might work for you. It might be better for you to bite size it, so do some on Saturday and some on Sunday, but some people might want a day off and work really hard on that Saturday. So really think about you and how you work best as well, and what's going to really motivate you as well, because it is really hard, and having that motivation to think, right, well, I know I've got a day off coming up, where I can go and play football or whatever, or I can go and go on my games for a bit, will really help you. Set those priorities as well. So make sure, even if you really, really, really like one subject, but the exam is maybe the last exam, it means that you perhaps want to make sure something else is your priority, to ensure that you're getting the right amount of revision time before the next one. So do set those priorities. Make sure you're thinking about what's achievable, what's maybe a quick task, or what's going to take longer, and make sure that you do set yourself priorities. Like we said, and we've said quite a lot, break those times into manageable chunks for yourself. Give yourself rewards as well. That might be a bit of free time. It might be some kind of food. Um, it might be something else. So set yourself those goals so it doesn't feel like hard work. And even if it does feel like hard work, it means that you're being rewarded for it as well. And then review your progress as well. So you heard me talk a lot about past papers. They're a really good way to check what you're like and practice your exam technique, because you'll be able to see how much you've taken in and if you can answer the questions in the exam. But there's also things like flashcards. So if you want to practice and make sure you know terminology, you could make some nice flashcards, and you could get someone to test you or even test yourself on those as well. So make sure you're reviewing so you know exactly what maybe you need to target a little bit more. And start early as well. For some of you, you know that you work better at night and maybe not as much in the morning, or vice versa. So if you start nice and early, it means you can start revising, and start really kind of pushing yourself with your coursework and everything at the times that suit you. So do start that nice and early, just to give you that self that time, and just to make sure you feel confident as well, and you've got time to ask any questions if you have any. With time management in exams, like I said, past papers are a really good way to test this. But it's hard not to panic. So my first advice is make sure you have a bit of a breathe, have a breath, read those instructions carefully, see how many questions there are in the book that you need to answer, and then block out time at the start of the exam to plan any answers. So if they aren't just, science exams where it's 1 mark or 2 mark and you just got to put, the definition of something, if it's like an essay, block time so you can really plan your answers. Allocate time to each question as well based on the number of marks available. So you don't want to be spending 20 minutes on a 1 mark question, because you could be spending more time on a question that has more marks. So if you spend that amount of time on something and you're thinking, oh, I haven't answered it, still don't know, just move on. You can come back to it if you have time at the end. Just be aware, allocate that time, make sure that you are managing it to give yourself the best amount of time to get those marks. And that means that you do need to block out a small amount of time at the end, maybe 5 minutes, just to review what you've done, and make sure you're completely happy. As well, make sure the paper hasn't stuck together so you don't miss a page or anything as well. With this too, ensure you've complied even with all the instructions. So if you need to cross through any rough work so it's not marked, or you need to number pages, make sure that you've just done that beforehand, just to make sure that you've got everything marked down. So we've got an example of what a typical exam paper might look at. So you can see here the exam's 9 till 12. Also with your exams, make sure you do come nice and early, just so you've got time to make yourself all settled. So the time allowed is 3 hours. You can see there the instructions. So they need to, use a black ink pen. That's for most exams, so make sure you've got one of those. You can see that they have to answer all of them in question A, but they only need to put one in section B, so they need to make sure that they pick one in section B and just answer one. So they're the really key things with the instructions. But you can see there as well, the maximum mark from the paper is 60. So there's 30 marks in each section. So you probably want to be spending 30 minutes on each section, because they're equal in marks. So what you could do to kind of help with time management in this is for section A, you could spend, you can see it's 5 marks, question 2 is 10 marks, question 3 is 15 marks, and you can also see just one question is 30 marks because you only need to do one in section B. So you can see there for 60 minutes, for each 20 marks, you've got 15 minutes for each 5 marks. But you do need time for planning and checking too. So perhaps you want to do 10 to 15 minutes per 5 marks, just to make sure you've got that time to plan everything and check as well. So you can see there how we would split it up. So you've got at 9 o'clock, read and choose the questions you want. For 5 minutes, they're going to plan the answers they need, and then they're going to start answering those questions. So they've got 10 to 15 minutes on the first one, 20 to 25 on the second because it's worth more marks, and then 60 to 70 minutes on question 5 as well. And then they've allowed a little bit of time. They've allowed 10 minutes just to check anything and change anything that needs to be changed. So that means that they've got enough time just to make sure they've given themselves a fair amount of time to try every question. So it's a really good technique to use in your exams. Now, we spoke about some of the exams that you might have, and they might have those really long 30-mark questions you need to answer. So with this, each question for these ones will include an instruction, so something that you have to do. It'll include the topic area, so what the subject is, what it's about, and then it'll have a specific focus. So it'll go into detail of what in that topic area they want you to focus on, because the topic areas can be quite big. So we've got an example here. So you can see on the board there what it might look like. So you can see 2 examples there, no, 3 even, of specific questions for an exam. And you can see that we've put at the bottom instruction, topic area, and focus. And if you look, you can see, the instruction on the first one is describe and explain. For the second bit is the topic area there. So you can see there, geography of the world economy. And then it goes into specific focus. So since 1945, you want to be making sure that you're doing that. And you could always bring 3 different colored highlighters. So you can highlight these 3 areas in these questions so you can really find them out. But have a look now for yourself. Which can you see the instruction, topic area, and focus in the next 2? So have a think and see if you can. I'll give you a little bit of time, and if you can, you feel free to put that in the chat as well. And you can see if you're right. We'll give you a round of applause if you are. I'll give you 5 more seconds to have a think. Brilliant. So you can see there the instruction is discussed. So it's right at the end this time of the second question. The topic area is at the start. So the topic area is crime, which is quite broad. So then it's got that focus. So international laws and international law courts. And then for the third one, you can see there instruction is consider. Topic area is space exploration. And then the focus is money spent on space research. So they can come in different places in the question. It might not always be the instruction at the start. So do make sure that you're aware of this and bring different highlighters if it helps you find these different areas. And you can see them here on there as well. So you can see the instructions. They are at different places of each example. So do be aware of that. Read it out if it helps too. And then you've got the subject there, and they can be very, very different. So make sure you do revise on what you need to revise to make sure that you've got key examples for each focus. And then you can see the key aspect there. So it goes into further detail with these examples. Fabulous. So we've talked a little bit about this, but how do you actually plan an excitement once you've found those 3 things? And I think for a lot of people, it's something we all panic about. I definitely did when I was at school, and I was like, oh, do I actually need to do a plan? But when I started doing them, I found it really helped structure my answers and make sure I included everything. And there's certain things you can do. You could do thought maps, you could make spider diagrams, or you could, and as well, you do need to think about that structure, and doing those things can help with that. So it's up to you which technique works for you, but thought or mind mapping's a really great way to kind of focus on that central topic, because you can start thinking about the keywords around that area, around that topic, and then you can make a kind of structure depending on it as well. So it can really help plan everything and link your arguments together. So you can see a bit of an idea of one there. So you can see there with the study as a topic, it's been split into 4 things. So planning, note taking, organising and exams. And they've split it from there. So planning has a few different things involved with it, because planning is different depending on what you're doing. There's also note taking in different things like lectures, and also how to actually make them. There's exams, so revision is a big part of that. So it talks about practice and revision, because like we said before, rehearsing and testing yourself is really important after you've done that revision. And then there's organising as well. So it's a really great way to kind of see things and see how they link together as well. If you do use these in assignments, label points in your linear notes with a keyword for each point while you're doing your revision, and in your exams as well. Try out structures as well, so see how they link together once you've made your mind map, so then you can decide how it might fit together and work best in your essay. And try a variety. See what works for you until you find the best plan to help you order your material as well. And then with brainstorming, it's a little bit harder, obviously, in exams because you might not have post-it notes, but you can still use this. You could use 2 sides of A4 paper and ask yourself key questions. So think about what structure you should use for it. So what's going to work best? What are the main points that you want to focus on, and what evidence is there with that? What reading have you done that's related to it? Or perhaps if you're using this in your revision, what reading do you need to do to back those points up? And where are you going to go for that? And then think about, have you got enough evidence? So you might have loads and loads of really good main points, and you might not be able to write about them all because you might not have that much time in your exams. So think about which ones have the most evidence so you can focus on those first and make sure you include the strongest arguments. So when you are structuring your answer, hopefully a lot of you are aware of kind of the main structure, but we recommend you start thinking about these things. So first, think about your introduction. Introduce the question. Think about, the outlines, approaches and aims that you're going to focus on in your answer as well, and you're going to touch upon. Then in the body is where you start analysing those key points to think about that topic area that's been mentioned in the question. It's where you find that evidence as well. And you also can find, things that go for what you're arguing and maybe against you as well. So really think about those 2 different things and make those contrasting approaches too. And then your conclusion, it's basically summarizing what you've put so far. So do you agree with, what's maybe been set out in the question or what you included in your introduction? Or do you think maybe evidence is lacking because of, the contrasting arguments you've maybe brought in as well? So you might need to do further research. There might need to be further research done in that area. So think about all those key things to structure your answer. And as well, you might use this in school, but think about using something like pair. So you've got your point. So make your point clearly and concisely. What are you trying to say? Are you for a certain thing? Are you against it? Tell us why you're for or against that thing. So where's the evidence? Have you got a case study that shows why your argument is correct, why it's accurate? Think about those relevant facts. Analyze the evidence as well. So is there anything wrong with the evidence you've provided? Is that case study being done? Is there anything wrong with the research methods that maybe was provided in that case study? Or is there any other evidence that is against that as well? So really analyze it. Tell us if there's anything wrong with it. No case study is usually perfect. There's usually something in research methods which could have been stronger. So think about that. Analyze those case studies. And then refer back to the question. So use keywords, use that key topic area, that key focus, and make sure you have, discussed it as well or analysed it, whatever the instruction for it has been. So we do have some top tips for smashing your exams as well. So before the exam, what I would make sure you do is make a timetable. Ensure that you have made a timetable that's realistic, that you can definitely do while having that time for yourself as well, and keeping yourself, mentally happy. Find a space without distractions as well. So for some people, this might be your room. For other people, it might be really hard working in your room because you've got all your favorite things there. So think about what really works well for you as well. Where are you going to have the less distractions? And if like your phone is a big distraction, maybe give it to someone in your house to look after so you can't use it, or turn off the internet as well. Revise in bite-sized chunks as well. Remember, it really helps your concentration if you do revise in those bite-sized chunks. Prioritize those tasks to make sure that you're focusing on the thing that's coming first. Is that your coursework, or is it your first exam? And set those rewards. You guys have a lot of exams coming forward, and I know that you're maybe nervous about it, and that's absolutely okay. That is normal to be nervous. A lot of students at the moment are feeling, a bit unmotivated and struggling with procrastination. But if you set yourself a reward that says, yes, I've managed to smash this today, I've got this many marks in my past paper, so I'm doing really well. Just, big yourself up, set yourself a reward, set yourself something to look forward to, because you do deserve a break, definitely, if you've been working hard. And then as well, join our community groups as well. So if you haven't already, soon you'll be invited to a UniBuddy community by University of Leicester. It's not a spam email, so check your junk if you haven't got it, or just keep on checking your junk email. It basically is an opportunity for you to meet students already at the university, and also students with offer holders who are offer holders as well, even, and talk about different things, both to do with University of Leicester, but also about what you're going through at the moment. So some people might be doing the same A-levels as you, and you can ask them what they're doing to, help with their revision as well. They might have done a similar past paper, so they can give you a bit of advice as well. So join those groups so you can meet people who are in the same position as you, and share advice. Then during the exam, take a second, breathe. It's really important. Don't just panic. Just take a second, think about what you need to do. You need to make sure you've got your time management done, so you know how long you're going to spend on each question. And then you need to make your plan as well. And then you need to think about it with that structure in mind as well. Highlight those keywords. So if there are those essay questions that we saw before, highlight your instruction, the topic area, and the focus to make sure you've got them. Create that plan. Segment the exam as well if it helps. So make sure you know, right, I need to make sure that I don't spend too much on this question. And then if you're really, really struggling on something, move on. Just move on. You can come back to it at the end, because you will have given yourself some time at the end to come back to it. So if you're really struggling, there is no point giving yourself an extra 10 minutes on it. Just come back to it at the end. You might be able to use that 10 minutes on a question that you are really confident about. So move on, and then you can come back to it at the end. But that is the end of the presentation. I hope you found that useful. Apologies again for all the tech difficulties at the start. It's just part of doing these webinars sometimes, but hopefully you still found this really useful. If you have any questions, do put those questions in the chat function. You can see Alex is there to help answer the questions, and I will be there to help now as well. But if you do have any questions after today, you can always chat to us on UniBuddy as well, and you can see the website there as well on the screen. But chat with us. There's staff on there, but there's also students, so you can perhaps talk to students who are doing the course you're interested in as well, and see if they have any advice too. As well, if you do have time, we do have another webinar tomorrow on reading and reliability with my wonderful colleague Ashley. So do tune into that if you want to find more about how you can really boost up your essays and your exams with further reading, and how to make sure that you reference those and make sure they're reliable sources of information as well. But without further ado, I will stop sharing my screen. If anybody has any questions, do feel free to answer those in the chat, and I can either pop back on the screen and talk to you, or I'll answer those in the chat function as well. But thank you all so much for listening. Bye.